Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the buying and selling of dealerships in today's video and why this is all happening and I guess what you could potentially do about this. With that being said, let's get right into the video. So I've got to give a little bit of background to properly explain why there are so many dealerships being sold in today's market. So before COVID, the car industry was relatively stable, but in a slight decline from a profit standpoint. Every single year, about the same amount of new and used cars were being sold. New cars were on a slight decline, and dealership profits at the same time were on a slight decline. So it wasn't a fast enough decline to really raise any red flags. Like, people were talking about it, but nobody was like, oh, quick, get out of the car industry because nobody's going to be making money anymore. It was more like, oh, in 15, 20 years from now, we probably want to be doing something a little bit different because at the rate profits are going down, it might not make sense to work at dealerships anymore or own dealerships anymore. Now, fast forward through COVID, like 2020 through 2021, and now we're into 2022, and dealership profits have absolutely skyrocketed, right? We have massive supply issues, and those have increased dealership profits by a crazy margin. Just to give you guys an idea, just on the car side of things, new car side of things, at the beginning of 2021, almost nobody paid over MSRP. It was like 4 or 5% of buyers paid over MSRP. At the end of 2021, like over 90% of people are paying over MSRP for a car. And so you imagine on the front end side of transactions for new vehicles, dealerships per car are making thousands of dollars more than they were making prior. And on the high-end side of things, high-end cars, it's way more. So profits are at an all-time high. And so that's leading a lot of owners of dealerships to want to just get out. And I know that seems counterintuitive. You'd think, oh, if profits are really high, then you probably want to hunker down and just keep collecting checks. But high profits means that these owners can get higher valuations than what they were able to get in the past, and so that means that they can just cash out and move on with their lives. There's a lot of dealership owners that want to retire, and that's because just like other high value assets, right? Most of dealerships are owned by older people, and you get to a point where you just don't want to work anymore, you just want to retire, you move on. And this is definitely showing the numbers. So at the end of 2021, fourth quarter of 2021, 693 dealerships were sold. It's quite a bit. And then in terms of the percentages of people that own dealerships, right? In terms of what they're planning on doing, 5% plan to buy and sell, 21% plan to buy, 22% are unsure, and then 51% plan to just hold and not do anything. So the majority of dealerships are still planning to just hold and stay the course like they were doing pre-COVID, but you have a much larger majority of people that are either unsure or they're selling and buying and all that kind of stuff. So there has been quite a bit of a shift, and you have to look at this purely from a business standpoint. So again, like I said, profits are in fact at an all-time high, which means that business valuations are going to go up because when it comes to a dealership, there's so many different parts that go into the valuation of a dealership. First off, it's real estate, so location is very important. Where is the dealership located? So that's going to play into how viable the business is, obviously, but also what's the land worth, and then what are all the dealership assets worth? And that comes down to inventory, which inventory right now is at an all-time low. And so funny enough, dealerships are getting sold right now. Inventory is still being taken into account, but they're more looking at allocation rather than inventory with a lot of these dealership transactions, because a lot of dealerships just don't have a lot on the ground, right? So yeah, inventory, they have to value that, and then the structure and everything that's associated with the dealership, right? Is it a new car dealership or is it a used car dealership, right? New car dealerships are so much more expensive generally than used car dealerships. And then does it have a service department or not? Does it have a department that upfits vehicles or not? And then, how old is the structure? There's so many things that go into the valuation from a real estate perspective, but you have that first value, right? And, this is going to vary so much. I mean, there are some dealerships that are worth, a couple million based on the structure and all that kind of stuff. And there are some that are worth crazy amount, like 10, 15, 20 million dollars just for the structure itself, especially the high-end luxury dealerships. And then the other thing that goes into the equation is going to be profits. So if you guys don't know, whenever a business is sold, part of the valuation is associated with what that business is making from a profit standpoint. So just for example's sake, let's say a business makes $100,000 a year And at the negotiated contract, they'll basically pay 5 years worth of profit to purchase that business. So in our example, $500,000. And that's kind of how things work. And that's why businesses that have absolutely no assets but just make money are still worth something, because investors are basically, or the buyer, right, is basically paying for future profits in advance, and they're expecting to be able to, increase those yearly profits or hold it for long enough that they'd be able to make their money back, and then some. It's kind of just how things work. But that's another parts of dealerships, and there's a huge range on this, but what I can tell you is that these last 2 years have helped increase dealership valuations by a massive amount because of how high profits have been. I can't say what dealerships I've talked to, but I've talked to a bunch of dealerships about what their profit has looked like. And a lot of these dealerships are seeing their yearly profits increase by a magnitude of 4 to 5 to 6 times as much as what it was before in some cases on like the extreme end. Other dealerships are making like twice as much, but across the board, pretty much everyone is making more money. And so with these higher valuations, right, these older owners are like, yep, let's just cash out, move on, right, retire, go play on the golf course, all that kind of stuff. And on the investor side of things, investors are just willing to pay more money. There's a lot of cases where dealerships were trying to sell out before COVID, and they weren't able to because they weren't able to get the money that they needed to get to sell out. And now they're able to get that and some more because of these increased valuations. And so it's kind of this interesting effect. And the forecast is showing that this is not going to slow down anytime soon. And so dealerships are going to continually be sold at a quicker and quicker rate at this point, as owners want to cash out and investors want to invest in these dealerships. And you guys might be wondering, why would you want to invest into a dealership when we're at an all-time high in terms of the market values with these dealerships, and the car market is also at an all-time high? And so, we can only go down at this point. And the reason being is investment looks a lot better than other investments in the market right now, especially as we've gone through the first 2 months of 2022, right? The stock market has been going all over the place. Same thing with alternate investments like cryptocurrency. And so a lot of investors are looking for alternate investments to put their money into that's a lot safer than, say, the stock market that is going up and down every other day with huge fluctuations that don't seem to make any logical sense. And so dealerships that are showing insanely high profits, they can actually make sense to a lot of these investors. For example, here in Utah, we had a dealership group get bought out by a very large investment firm, and it's just to kind of increase their portfolio, right? And so a lot of these dealerships are getting bought out by not what you'd consider traditional dealership buyers. They're not like people that are planning on going and running the dealership. They're not car people. They're just these investment groups that are trying to increase the profits of their investment portfolios. But that's going to sum things up for today's video. I want you guys to let me know what you think about this. If you're planning on investing into dealerships, which if you guys are wondering how you'd be able to do that, obviously on the frontline side of things, you could go and buy your own dealership, but that would cost a massive amount of money. I don't think I've really seen dealerships for sale for less than several $1,000,000. And like I said, if it's a new car dealership and if it's in a good area and profits are good, I mean, you could expect to pay at least, 15, 20, 25, $30 million for the store. It's crazy, and it goes up and up. It's just absolutely insane. But what you could do to indirectly invest into dealerships is invest in the companies that are purchasing these dealerships. There's several large, basically investment firms that they just go and buy dealerships. And so you could invest in those. And, if the dealerships are performing well, then your portfolio will be performing well as well. Not investment advice. Anyways, I'll see you guys.